Welcome to the Backdoor Fantasy Sports Podcast with Russo and Jordy.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Russo with Backdoor Fantasy Sports, and this is the Fantasy Football Podcast Waiver Wire show. I'm running solo today, going to do things a little bit different. It's Election Day, November 5th, and I hope you got out and voted, or I hope you plan to. I already voted. Jordy is out voting, so I'm going to be just kind of skipping the recap today, if that's cool, because that's a lot of work to go through the whole slate solo, but Jordy and I will try to get to that later on in the week. But yeah, I'm going to just jump through the actual waiver wire and kind of just get right to the point in today's episode, because I didn't want to leave you guys hanging on Tuesday, those of you who are actually tuning in for fantasy football content. So I'm going to walk through the sleeper trending. Before I do, we want to just I want to shout out our partners over at Underdog, killer platform if you enjoy DFS. If you use code Backdoor, you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free pick to help you cash your first slip. There's a link in the description if you want to check that out. And then also our partner Parlay Play. It's another DFS platform that we're really excited about. They've got killer lines over there and really good multipliers, alt lines. They've got all of it. And honestly, their lines are really competitive if you enjoy daily fantasy sports. So if you want to check that out, just use code Backdoor, and they're going to give you a 100% deposit match up to $100 plus free $5 promo play. So just make sure you use code Backdoor for either of those when you're signing up. And yeah, there is a link in the description for both of those. So let's talk about what's trending on Sleeper and break down some of these players. The top of the board is Khalil Herbert, and it's because he just got traded to the Bengals. For Dynasty, if I'm a Khalil Herbert owner, I'm excited at the potential here, but I do think it's going to be a little bit of a muddy situation to get started. So I'm not like overly excited for redraft because, I mean, he wasn't really getting much snaps with Chicago. You got Chase Brown, you've got Zach Moss for the Bengals. So I think Khalil Herbert coming in and having to learn this offense, I think he's going to immediately be the third in line. I know Zach Moss is injured. Let me see what that status is looking like, because I used to be a big fan of Khalil Herbert. I know that he's got like a lot of upside, fast, athletic, can catch the ball. Oh yeah, so Zach Moss is officially on IR. So maybe he jumps right into RB2 work. Maybe we're surprised, and after a week or two, we see like a totally split backfield here, because he does have the upside, So I guess what I'm saying is, like, he's not someone that I'm going to break the bank for, but he is, trending at the top of Sleeper. So I would imagine, like, his upside right now is like, if he can turn into an RB2 for you, that's like a win. But I think for the next couple of weeks, he's going to be, in that RB3, maybe flex range, but I wouldn't even want him to just be like a solid flex. I just personally I want to see more of how this is going to shape out. It's not like a situation where he's jumping right into RB1 workload, So next up on the trending list is Quentin Johnston. I'm more excited about this play. Last year as a rookie, he had a really tough time catching the ball. I was like totally out on QJ. I was just considering him like a bust, like super athletic, big wide receiver. But it was just like the dude cannot catch the ball. And then I thought Jim Harbaugh coming in was going to be even worse, because it's a new coaching staff and they didn't draft this guy. And it's actually looking pretty solid. Justin Herbert's playing great right now. Ladd McConkey is awesome. That has been a killer rookie pick. But QJ is finding his place, and he's delivering on his opportunities. So I know he didn't like have a huge game back before he missed a couple games against Denver, but this last game against Cleveland, he looked great. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 118 yards and a touchdown. And he's just looking like he can develop into, I think McConkey will still be the 1A, but he could be a solid 1B. And the thing is, there's no competition for him at his position Him and McConkey play very different types of roles. So these guys can both exist in this offense. And I mean, the Chargers look better than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting J.K. Dobbins to be popping off and be as good as he's been. I'm so happy for him because, like we've talked about before, he's playing on a $50,000 contract because dude lost both of his knees pretty much. And it was a really sad story. And then, I believe is it Greg Roman, I believe, the offensive coordinator who was with the Ravens. He's with Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers now, and he went and got J.K. Dobbins, and Dobbins was kind of on a prove-it deal. I mean, that's the cheapest contract I've heard of, $50,000 for a professional football player. But I hope there's a lot of incentives stacked into that deal. I haven't looked into that, but he looks great. He looks like the absolute undisputed RB1 in that offense and no threat to the position. And it's perfect for Harbaugh because of, run heavy, but they're moving the ball even better than I was expecting as far as like through the air. I thought that this was going to be like really heavy run game. So it's like reliably a heavy run game, but they're opening up the passing game. Herbert doesn't look as bothered as I thought he would with the plantar's foot injury. Their defense looked incredible last week. And then you've got, it's just when the offense is clicking like that, someone like QJ, if he can start catching the ball, all of a sudden his story isn't over. So he's very enticing to me because I think this could be just the beginning for him as they continue to get settled in. So I love him. He's probably one of my favorites on the waiver wire this week. And then we got Demarcus Robinson at number 3. He's, I think that he's worth rostering for sure. You just never know when he's going to pop off. He knows this offense very well. He fits into it great too. We saw last year, back half of the year, he was relevant with a healthy Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Coming off this game against Seattle, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And these were like beautiful touchdowns. These were like contested. Like I believe one of them was one-handed. I'm trying to remember because there was a lot of football on Sunday, but the week before that against Minnesota, 85% of snaps, 2 receptions for 35 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you got 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks. This isn't, it's like he's a part of what they're doing. And I think since he's heating up, he's going to just earn more targets. So I love him right up there with QJ. And then let's see who else we've got. Mike Gesicki, if you need a tight end, this dude's heating up. I've always been a fan of Mike Gesicki. I always thought he was like very underutilized back when he was playing with the Dolphins and stuff, because we know like this is another ex-basketball player who's super, super athletic. He can go up there and get the ball. He's fast. He's like, he's got great agility. We've seen him pop off like a couple times. It was sort of a teaser in week 2 against Kansas City, but that's a tough matchup. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 91 yards. So it's like this has been a little bit of a roller coaster. It's like very boom or bust. But now we at least have 2 weeks back to back where solid week against Philly, just 53% of snaps, but 8 targets, 7 receptions, 73 yards. And then against the Raiders, just 36% of snaps, and he goes for 5 receptions, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the dude, you see him, he looks fast. He looks great. So I think that this is a tight end you do want to go get if you don't have someone that you're super stoked on. Even if you have someone that is your definitive tight end 1, like if you don't have a backup tight end that you're stoked on, like go grab this guy. I would be happy to have him. And I think, let me double check there. For Dynasty, 29 years old. He's still got like some rubber on the tires, these tight ends, I mean, look at what Kelsey's doing. I'm not saying that Gesicki is Kelsey, but this isn't the same window as like running backs where when they're pushing 30, it's like, okay, time to get them off your roster. So he could definitely be productive moving forward, but 6'6", 245, and he moves like he doesn't move like he's that big, but he's a pretty big dude, but he's super athletic. So I love him at the tight end position for sure. We got the Detroit Lions defense trending. A lot of these defenses, when they're trending, it's because of bye weeks and matchups, but that's pretty wild. I can't picture the Lions being the type of defense that would be dropped to the point where they're trending because everyone's picking them up, but maybe they just have a bye week or something. No, they had their bye week much earlier. I don't know why they're trending. But I mean, they should already be rostered anyways. So let's see. Nick Westbrook-Akine is next up on the trending. He's getting plenty of snaps now that Hopkins is gone. Up in the 90s. Had a solid outing, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown against New England. So yeah, I mean, like, solid wide receiver too. I don't really see anything on the board that I'm like breaking the bank for. This isn't like a rush to the waiver wire type week, but there's like a lot of great mid-range options. So if you need a wide receiver, I think that he's a definitive wide receiver too now. Calvin Ridley is looking better and better since Hopkins has left. So let me just check on Ridley. Watch me like talk like Westbrook. Akine is not that important. Yeah, okay. I was just making sure Ridley wasn't like injured or something. No, like how did Ridley do last week? Yeah, 5 for 73. Not bad. I think both of these guys will do great. Looks like Mason Rudolph has been at least able to move the ball. The Titans are just in a rough spot and kind of like tough identity right now. It's like they feel like they're in rebuild, new coaching staff and but they're sort of figuring things out a little bit. I think moving Hopkins was the best for the team and man, did Hopkins look great with the Chiefs. I had a feeling this was going to be his breakout week and I think that if you're a Hopkins owner, that's going to be great rest of season. And then we got Taysom Hill trending. Yeah, you always have that rushing upside, very boom or bust. If he doesn't get you a rushing touchdown, it's probably not going to be that great, but the upside is exciting because he can pass the ball, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball. Like he's essentially playing 3 positions, but this is just, for me, Taysom Hill is more of like a best ball type of a play because then you're getting the points on those spike weeks, but he's not the type of play that I'm, if you like absolutely don't have a backup tight end, then sure, like sometimes situations open up, like if Kamara was to go down or something, like you would see Taysom see even more rushing attempts and more red zone looks, but or if we see a trend where they're using him in goal line situations a lot more often, then I'd be more interested, but I'm just still not sold right now. Cooper Rush trending, I'm just personally not interested.
Enjoy sports betting and daily fantasy? Well, Daily Grind is here to help you beat the books. They make premium DFS tools that do all the work for you, comparing lines across just about every platform, looking for discrepancies for you to take advantage of. Start off your research with their DFS Optimizer, a tool that finds all the best plays and rates them with their odds to hit indicator. Or if you'd rather have them make your entire slip for you, they have you covered with their AI slip generator. They'll even notify you when a new slip is available. Go to dgfantasy.com and use code Backdoor. They will give you 25% off your first subscription all the way up to a year if you want. That's dgfantasy.com, code Backdoor.
Yeah, let's see. He only played part of the game because Dak got hurt, but it does look like Dak's going to be out for a little while. So I guess if you're playing in like a super flex league where you're starting 2 quarterbacks, sure, I would grab him just at the chance that he might be starting. I wonder if they're going to take a look at Trey Lance. I mean, like they went and got Trey Lance. I'm just curious, but Trey Lance is like super athletic, but he's just looked really bad as a passer. So I just think there's better options on the board for like redraft and dynasty than Cooper Rush, especially if Dak is not like out for the season. Cam Akers is trending. And again, I'm not like too interested. Solid yards per carry, only 6 attempts for 46 yards, averaging 7.67 yards per carry. 2 targets, 2 catches. He looked good, but I think that's just like all Aaron Jones. So if you want that like upside as far as like you've got the backup to, an RB1 that is getting all the work, then maybe. But I mean, unless you're desperate, I don't think this is going to turn into like a Gibbs Montgomery type situation where you have two running backs that are like every week starters. So I'm personally not that interested in Cam Akers, because we've also seen Cam in situations where he does get the opportunities and he just doesn't look good. I believe when he was playing with the Texans, he had some opportunities and it was just kind of like they were mixing in all sorts of other depth pieces there. He couldn't just win the starting job even when the starter was down, which I believe was Joe Mixon. Noah Brown, let's see. He's getting the snaps, back-to-back weeks. So he had 81% of snaps in Week 8 against Chicago. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And then against the Giants here, 50% of snaps, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 60 yards. So I like it because I want pieces of this offense. Again, not anything I'm going to break the bank for, but I think he's like a flex, like wide receiver 2, maybe like bye week fill-in type of player, and we could see things get better from here. So yeah, I don't hate it, but I'm not going to swing hard on it or anything. If Juwan Jennings is available in your league, he's back at practice. And with Ayuk out the rest of season, we've seen this dude go for 50 points on 85% of snaps, playing almost a perfect game. 12 targets, 11 receptions, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So I don't care if he's only done it once. I want that guy on my team. If he's available, I'm rolling those dice, and I'm just going to see, So it's like, coming off that bye week, he's back at practice, and he's someone who, if he's back to 100%, he's going to jump right into a significant role with this offense. So yeah, I'd probably prioritize him. Let's see. Yeah, I would definitely, that would be my top target, is Juwan Jennings. Once again, we've said that before. Hunter Henry is trending. So, I talked about him on our episode early on in preseason about like, a veteran that you don't want to give up on, particularly for Dynasty. I was holding on to him. I have Trey McBride, but I just was not going to drop Hunter Henry or trade him because I wasn't getting the value that I would want for him, because I knew that he was able to still pop off. Similar situation to Mike Gesicki, just 29 years old, 6'5", 249 pounds, not as athletic, but very, very good hands and very strong, good with contact. And he's had a great connection with Drake May. And he's worked his way into that definitive, like he's the tight end 1 for the Patriots, and this connection just seems to be getting better and better. Coming off 3 straight weeks with at least 6 targets. Last week he had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 56 yards. No touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, but this is still solid. I mean, like, I have this, I'm looking on a full PPR league, and if your tight end's getting you 13, 17, 9.5, 12.6, that's a solid floor. If he gets into the end zone on any of these games, the 13 he actually did. But yeah, you got that touchdown upside, but you got a solid floor where he's knocking on the door of 10 points for you at that position. That's kind of hard to find someone elite. So I love Hunter Henry. I think it's just going to keep getting better. Tough matchup next week against Chicago, but yeah, I would, him and Gesicki are both great pickups this week if you need a tight end. Sterling Shepard, I like this play a lot too. Maybe it's close between him and Juwan Jennings. I think I'm taking Jennings just because he's went for 50 this year. But I don't want to undersell the upside with Sterling Shepard. Mike Evans is probably out at least another 3 weeks, maybe at least 2 more weeks. So with Chris Godwin out for the season, I've been preaching about how Baker Mayfield's going to find a way to stay competitive, and this team is not going to just go down. And they haven't. They even down to the very end, they kept that game close against Kansas City, and he's slowly working his way into like the number 1 wide receiver target. I think Cade Otton is the biggest beneficiary of the situation with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Man, speaking of tight ends, if Cade Otton's available in your league, you definitely want to go get him. That dude is he's jumping into that elite category, especially with the situation now. Baker just loves to throw the ball to that dude, and he's athletic. He's great. But Sterling Shepard, I think, is going to keep getting a little bit better. So, yeah, definitely prioritize Juwan Jennings. But I like Sterling Shepard, too. Okay, let's actually talk about Cade Otton here. Dude has just been popping off. 3 weeks in a row, full PPR, 21 points or more. Week 8 against Atlanta goes for 29 fantasy points, playing just almost all the snaps, 98% of snaps, 93, 98, double-digit targets every week. Yeah, this dude is jumping into that elite category, top 3 tight ends in the league if he keeps this up, and I don't see any reason for him not to. I mean, he just had 11 targets against Kansas City. It doesn't get much more difficult than that. I know that they're soft matchup against tight ends, but overall as a defense, like, look what they did to Mark Andrews in week 1. Like, they could have focused more on him if they wanted to, but yeah, I mean, this is just going to be locked and loaded every week starter. This would be my number 1 pickup on the week, actually. Him and Juwan Jennings are very close. But yeah, this last matchup against Kansas City, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 77 yards, got in the end zone. The week before that against Atlanta, nine receptions, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that he's going to continue to be an option in the red zone. This is multiple weeks now. 3 out of the last 4 weeks, they've targeted him in the end zone, and he's converted that into touchdowns. So 4 touchdowns in 4 weeks. I'm all over this. I was really high on this as soon as Evans went down. Obviously, a lot of you probably were. But I think people don't understand, especially for Dynasty, this dude's only 25 years old, 6'5", 247, a little bit more like, he's kind of like a Trey McBride, a little less athletic, but, just this big body dude who's really good with contested catch situations. So I'm all over Cade Otton this week. And I mean, I didn't have him. He was already taken in Dynasty, but I love the upside here. So I'm pretty sure. So yeah, Cortland Sutton has had back-to-back great games. Man, this is tough. I keep comparing people to Juwan Jennings. Like, it's tricky because it's like what's thrown me for a loop is that week 7 against New Orleans where he had 0 targets on 86% of snaps. But if you look before that against the Chargers, 15 fantasy score, then you've got the goose egg in week 7, and then week 8, 20 fantasy points, and then against Baltimore, 26.28 fantasy points. Last week, 7 receptions, 122 yards. It looks awesome. So this is kind of a tricky one, but really it's just, I mean, I think it's pretty solid. This is a tough matchup against Kansas City next week, but yeah, I mean, he's right up there in the top targets for waivers this week if he's available. Solid wide receiver too, every week pretty much. And then we've got Trey Palmer trending. I'm just not that interested. He's got history with the team. I know that he was like dealing with injuries and whatnot, but I haven't seen him look great. Did McMillan get like injured in that last game? Hamstring. Yeah, so he missed the game. That's right. Dealing with a hamstring. But I mean, McMillan, I think, is going to be a priority as far as targets go. And you got Sterling Shepard emerging, and you've got Cade Otton being the number 1 target. Like, I'm just not really interested in Trey Palmer. All right, Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford. These are just kind of names like you can make your own decisions on that. Like, I'm not in a position where I'm like trying to grab these guys. If you're absolutely desperate, then sure. Like, let me even just see what Daniel Jones did last week. Not bad. 20 of 26, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have that beast rushing touchdown. I saw that. So seven attempts, 54 rushing yards and a touchdown. One fumble lost. Yeah. I mean, this is just going to be another spiky situation. He does have Carolina next week and then a bye week. So he should do great against Carolina. But But yeah, I'm not like overly excited. It's going to be a bumpy ride with Daniel Jones. And then let's see here. Stafford. Also a bumpy ride, but he just got started to get his best wide receivers back. So, against Minnesota, he's got puts up 25 fantasy points, solid. 25 of 34 attempts, 279 yards and a touchdown. No, 4 touchdowns. That's my bad. 1 interception, 4 touchdowns. Yeah, that's a huge outing. So yeah, he's just going to be a solid play for you. Like, he's basically what I thought Baker Mayfield was going to be for me this year. I'm like, okay, like, I'm not that excited, but Anthony Richardson was kind of like, I needed a backup. And so I started Baker, and I haven't looked back because Baker is just dominating for fantasy this year, which is great. But Stafford has that upside, like we see here against Minnesota, those 4 touchdowns. And then last week, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So the thing is like Sean McVay is a great offensive coordinator and a great head coach, great play caller. And Stafford has, they have like that mind meld thing going on where the offense just looks good when it's clicking. And Stafford's a gunslinger when he needs to do it. 44 attempts, like, that's not out of the ordinary for Stafford. So I like him. I definitely like him better than Daniel Jones if you need a quarterback. And then this wide receiver, Raheem Jarrett, is trending. It's probably just for dynasty purposes. I'm not interested. 11% owned. 84% of snaps, 1 target, 1 reception. I'm just not interested. Darnell Mooney's trending. Mooney should already be on your roster. So if he's available in your league, yeah, go get him because he's got wide receiver 1 upside and probably going to be solid for you as a wide receiver 2 flex, like week after week. Now, Rico Dowdle popped off, and it was unfortunate because he was on my bench in Dynasty, but 71% of snaps, 12 carries for 75 yards, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 32 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, I actually moved him right into my flex for this week because I think we've seen enough. Now we've got drama with Zeke. I don't think Dalvin Cook is a threat. I think that they did this little experiment bringing in Cook while, Dowdle was out, and it did not look great. So I think that now that Dowdle is like good to go, I think that it's like kind of like the consensus is there. Like, he's going to be the guy, and he's making a lot of his opportunities. We've seen also that game against Pittsburgh, which is a tough matchup in week 5, 50% of snaps, but they gave him 20 carries and he did a lot with that, 87 yards. So 4.3 yards per carry. Great pass catcher, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 27 yards and a touchdown. So I think things continue to look up for Dowdle. In my situation, I know Philly is a tough matchup, but I think I'm going to start him at the flex because I thought the same thing about Atlanta. I thought the same thing about Pittsburgh. And now I just feel like there's a little bit more clarity on who the RB1 is for the Cowboys. So yeah, he's right up there with the top waiver wire ad if he happens to be available. And then we got guys like Ricky Pearsall. Sure. I think he'll eventually get worked into a good spot, coming off the bye week. But I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed, and I don't think he's going to be a priority over Jennings if Jennings is fully healthy. So for redraft, I'm just not interested. For Dynasty, sure. He's young. I'd be excited to have him for Dynasty, but it's like a long-term investment. And then Jordan Addison is also trending here. He didn't get that involved. He got into the end zone against Indiana, but he's getting the snaps, and he looked the healthiest I think he's been all year. And so I think things continue to get better for him. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Now he's got Jacksonville. This should be a solid matchup. They're pretty generous to wide receivers in the red zone and just overall receiving yards allowed. So I might actually. It'd be tough. I'm thinking about starting him at the flex instead of Dowdle. But Dowdle probably has a little bit of a stronger floor because Jordan Addison's never going to be the wide receiver one, but they are moving the ball around. Justin Jefferson is still getting his, who's clearly the best wide receiver in the game. But yeah, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor. I think that Kevin O'Connell likes to move the ball around, which is kind of nice. So with all that attention on Jefferson, teams have to plan for him. Jefferson is going to just stomp this Jacksonville defense if they don't double him at least. So this might be a good game for Jordan Addison here. Definitely someone who should be rostered. So Jonathan Mingo, not interested. I know he just got traded to the Cowboys. Not interested. He's not going to jump into any significant role. Let me check on CD. What is the status? Because I know he got hurt. Week to week optimism. He can play week 10. Let's see. Jalen Tolbert, totally healthy. Yeah, I'm not interested in Mingo. He hasn't shown me anything. Jalen Tolbert is looking solid. He's a little bit up and down, but we've already seen flashes of what he can do. I think this is like less of a Tolbert problem and more of like a just overall like this team is not being well coached right now. So if they can get that figured out, I just don't think Mingo's going to step into any significant role. Yeah, now we're just kind of getting to the bottom of the barrel. Let's see if there's any other significant names. Roma Dunze, that's someone who I'd always be happy to have. So if he's available, I would go get him. It seems like he's heating up a little bit. 7 targets, 6 targets before that against Washington. Last week against Arizona, 5 receptions, 104 yards. This dude is going to be a monster eventually. It's just how soon does he, establish himself as like an every week, like you can count on him. He's got all of the attributes on paper. 6'3", 215, just absolute monster with athleticism, great hands. Keenan Allen's been struggling to just bring the ball in. So, for Dynasty, I would absolutely love to have a Dunze. I could not get him. No one will move him because the upside is so huge. One of the best wide receivers in the draft for sure. But for redraft, if he's out there, go get him because he could easily start popping off here any minute now, any week. All right. Anything else before we get out of here? Oh, DeAndre Hopkins, of course. If Hopkins is available, I think that's easily the top ad of the week. I would take him over Juwan Jennings, absolutely. I had a feeling this was going to be the week. Soft matchup against Tampa Bay, against Las Vegas. He had just been with the team for, like half of a week. And there's a lot to learn in the Andy Reid offense. And so Andy Reid was already talking about getting him more involved. And no one on the team can pull the ball in like Hopkins can. Like I know Kelsey is solid, but Hopkins, like some of the catches he was making in that Tampa Bay game in the rain, like that dude has just got glue for hands. So I think that this is just going to be, an ongoing thing rest of season. Like he's going to be high-end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1. Some weeks he's going to this is not the last time that he's going to be knocking on the door of 30 fantasy points in full PPR. So that's the top waiver wire ad for sure. I just wasn't even thinking he was going to be trending. I thought he'd be on rosters everywhere. So that pretty much covers it. If you have any questions about players that I didn't cover, just leave me a comment and I'll get back to you, or Jordy will get back to you. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much. We will be dropping our NBA videos tonight, our NBA picks tonight for tomorrow's 12-game slate. So make sure you tune in for that. And once again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a like if you don't mind, just helps us grow the channel. And yeah, leave us a comment if you have any questions, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Backdoor Fantasy Sports Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop us a comment. You can also find us on all platforms at Backdoor FS.